All right. Good evening, everybody, and good evening to members of the public who are listening in on YouTube. I don't think we have anybody here, members of the public here. And I'd like to just tell you that this is the last, well, unless there's another extraordinary, this is the last full council meeting of this term. I'm delighted to say that the Reverend William Warren is here with us from Cromer Parish Church. I have met you before, and I'm delighted that you're here to lead our prayers. So if you'd like to stand, please, and we'll listen.
Reading from the book of Proverbs. Blessed are those who find wisdom.
Thank you very much. Let's wait for our late comers to settle. Welcome. Okay, apologies for absence, please. Emma?
Received apologies from Councillor J Punchard and Councillor M Taylor.
Anybody know of anybody else? Councillor John Choi and Councillor Spagnola, I think. Councillor Penny, back. Yes. We've got two sets of minutes to confirm here. The minutes of the council meeting held on the 22nd of February and the extraordinary meeting held on the 1st of March. There are rather a lot of pages, so I shall not read them out, 50 in all. So I am assuming that you have read through these. Are there any problems with them? Yes, who said yes?
Yes, me.
Sorry.
Page 13, I think
Yes.
it's just a typo.
Yeah.
It's in the bit that, in the last line of the bit reporting my contribution to the debate, where I praised the budget. And it says in the last line about the officer, and I think it should say about the policy in the district.
Thank you. That will be an amendment.
Have you
made.
got that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emma, have you not done that?
Perfect.
Anybody else with any problems with these minutes, two sets of minutes? Let me take that on block. Can I have a proposer then to accept? Councillor Kershaw, seconder. Councillor Heinrich. Show of hands, please, to approve. Are there any? No. Those against? And abstentions? Right. Anybody else who wasn't at the meeting? Right, Councillor Housden and Councillor Shires and. Pardon? Right, okay. Thank you very much. Declarations of interests. Anybody, any declarations of interest on these? On the new agenda? No, right. Items of urgent business. Emma?
No, none received, Chairman.
None received. Chairman's communications. Matt, can we have these up, please? Hang around for a little bit. A little bit of a problem. Ah, there we are. This was a very pleasant evening at Oxnead Hall. Music playing, plenty of good conversation, and it was from 6 o'clock. And a couple of hours, really nice. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And this was the civic reception for the Broadland District Council. Lead, opening of the refurbished theatre bar. Look at me there with me skizzers. They were dressmaking scissors. I was told I was being very honoured to be allowed to use dressmaking scissors to cut the ribbon. It's okay. Okay, that was actually a very nice afternoon. Tim was there. Good, wasn't it, Tim? And then I went for Queen tea on the puffer train at Sheringham. That was lovely, actually. And again, we were there for a couple of 3 hours, and I never stopped talking with the other members sitting with me at my table. And I must say, for those of you who've been members as long as I have, the chair of the railway and his wife were sitting opposite me, and his wife is the sister of Anne Moore. Do you remember Anne Moore? Peter Moore's wife. So that was lovely. We had a long chat. Peter is unfortunately very unwell, so I passed on our condolences to him. Hope he's feeling better soon. That was it. Tim, leaders' announcements, please.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I wanted to give an update on the incident at Munsley Beach, which initially occurred on the 19th of March as a result of a leak from the Anglian Water pumping station. I thank our staff and staff also from our mission-term contractor for giving up their Mother's Day to attend this incident. The leaking pipe was repaired the night of the incident, but there was significant pollution of the beach and the promenade area as a result. Anglian Water have continued to remove contaminated beach material from the beach this week and plan a further clean down of the promenade area affected. We will be reviewing the response to the incident. There is concern over both the cause of the incident and the response time of the water company and their speed and ability to respond. We are, of course, in dialogue with Anglian Water on a number of other matters, including the Gimmingham combined sewage overflow and the issues with water abstraction impacting agricultural businesses in the district. And that, of course, will carry on into the new council. I can also give you an update in respect of the actions on the flying rings and impacts on seals. Staff from the communications and leisure teams and myself visited RSPCA East Winch on the 13th of March. The principal aims of the visit was to build content for continued social media and other media releases as part of the awareness campaign that we agreed and discussed, and improvements, of course, to signage, which we are currently working on. It was really fascinating to see the work they're doing there and the resources that they have to spend on the welfare of seals, including those that are injured due to entrapments. We understand they have around 40 seals present, and the resources are really quite astonishing. I think it's £3,000 a month on fish, £2,000 a month water supply, 500 on salt every month. So you can see there's a lot of work that goes into this by that charity, and we will apply our learning from that visit to our ongoing work. Our environmental contracts team continue to deal with the impacts of the strike action and issues that have impacted on residents and businesses, of course, collections subsequently. And these impacts sadly continue. We have not heard any more about further industrial action, and I hope that Serco and Unison are able to resolve the dispute as soon as possible. This is, of course, the last planned full council meeting ahead of the election, and I wanted to reflect briefly on some of the achievements of the authority and the councillors. On the coast, of course, we achieved the Backton and Walcott sandscaping scheme. That seems a very long time ago now, doesn't it? The council has led investments in the Market Town initiative, the electric vehicle charging points. The North Walsham has. The council evolved the Big Society Fund into the Sustainable Communities Fund with changed priorities, and this is continued to support numerous groups and amenities across the district. The council has purchased and leased commercial premises very successfully. The council has refurbished or replaced assets at Cromer Pier, the new provision of the reef, of course, replacing Splash, supporting of course, Sheringham Little Theatre very recently, and the public toilets, the most ambitious programme of investment regionally, I do believe, and of course, many long-term council assets being brought back into use in the meantime. There has been the recent submission of the local plan, which councillors, every councillor in here contributed to in some way. And on housing, of course, 18 properties for emergency accommodation, numerous families supported despite a great deal of challenge in this area, which will continue for some years. Many affordable homes, and of course, the Meadow Walk Extra Care Scheme funded jointly alongside the County Council. We saw the recent introduction of the Youth Council, which is very exciting, and I hope it will continue to inform the council's work in the months and years to come. The 4 years will, of course, be remembered for the COVID pandemic and all the lessons we learned and reprioritization of assets, of objectives, I should say, as a result. I feel we have become a more people-focused council for the better. We did have to adjust our work, of course, overnight, but we managed to deliver award-winning support for businesses, changes to the public realm, of course, the distribution hubs, work with numerous charities across the district. So it's, I think, testament to the ability of officers to adjust their work very quickly. Sorry, there's a bit of, I didn't know if there was a bit of a distraction in the background. We have, of course, relatively new sections of the council as a result of this greater focus, including the community connectors, financial inclusion team, and we've adjusted to the greater needs of families in the cost of living crisis. So, of course, the environment area of big change. We, of course, did have the blue flags up until very recently. It's until matters very much overtook us, but I'm sure whatever the colour of the council, we will get those back. We, of course, had the introduction of the Environmental Charter and the Net Zero strategy, leading, of course, to carbon reduction schemes, building improvements, and, of course, the wonderful tree planting. And, of course, the response to the invasion of Ukraine. So we were, of course, the first council to hire a Ukrainian support officer and have continued to support everyone we can, continuing, of course, to support those that have become homeless subsequently. All of you in the room have contributed to those achievements from across the council, but really we wanted to thank officers at the council, who in these last few years have dealt with an unprecedented level of change and challenge and have risen to that on every occasion, delivering all of those things and so much more. So if I can request that our chief executive and assistant directors take our thanks back to staff from this evening's meeting. But finally, for all members, for those standing in the upcoming elections and to those retiring, I wish you all the very best and thank you for your service to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Public questions and statements. Emma?
No, none
No.
received, Chairman.
Right, we now pass swiftly to the portfolio reports. I am reminding you that you may ask questions of the cabinet members. One question per member asking a question, 30 minutes in total. And I am making an assumption, just a minute, Greg, please, I haven't stopped talking yet. I'm making an assumption that we have all read through the portfolio reports. Yes, Greg.
Thank you. It was just a question to Councillor Adams about the point he made about the Anglian water sewage at Munsley. And it was a question basically of a technical nature. Are we able to take or pursue any legal action against them for the damage they've done to our potential, well, for our tourist industry at the very beginning of the tourist season? The damage they've done to wildlife, the potential damage they might do to users of the water, the beach and other facilities on an ongoing basis. So the question is, are we able to, and if so, can I strongly urge that we do consider the possibility of taking legal action against them? Because the only way these wretches are going to actually act in a responsible manner is if there's some threat of money sanction hanging over them by way of legal action.
Yes.
Thank you, Greg. So, I do find the current situation very distressing. It's not really a day that goes past without some form of pollution somewhere. We've obviously had that due to some form of fault, slightly different from what's going on elsewhere in the country, but we have seen blue flags dropping like flies elsewhere, north, south, east and west. So there is a general deterioration of water quality, which needs to be understood, particularly in the context of climate change and all that follows. In respect to the damage to our tourism industry, our environment here, obviously we've had the recent incident at Munsley Beach that will need to be reviewed. We were concerned about the response, the speed of the response and the ability to respond, the access to that pumping station. And of course, it's resulted in a significant amount of beach material having to be removed due to that particular incident. In respect to the blue flags, we've got to exclude any possibility of this happening again. And obviously, the Environment Agency have committed to carrying out things such as the DNA testing of water and finding, potential sources of pollution. We don't think we're getting anything wrong locally, but there is the issue at the Gimmingham combined sewage overflow, which has been overflowing sewage into the sea around the times of the test. But we cannot prove categorically that it was the cause of the loss of our blue flags at Seaporting, Munsley and East Runton. That said, I think you have to see the picture in its context, in that this has happened all over the country, and we know there is an issue with the water companies. So I think in the new council, we've got to continue to take this very seriously. And if that means action, a legal action or something along those lines by authorities, if that's the course we're led to, I certainly wouldn't rule it out, but I can't rule it in at this stage. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Very pleased as a coastal member to be able to join the Coastal Forum today. But I was disappointed, Madam Chairman, and perhaps we can have an answer as to, out of the 15 coastal ward members, only 5 chose to attend.
Who is this question aimed at?
sorry, at the coastal portfolio holder. I wonder if he could explain why.
Mr. Blathwaite.
Yes,
Councillor
10 of
Blathwaite.
his colleagues did not come to the coastal forum.
Well, I don't individually know why various people didn't attend the coastal forum. The invitation went out to everybody, and everybody is very busy. I think this coastal forum unfortunately clashed with the county council meeting, and a lot of the councillors who had to make a choice between the coastal forum and the county council probably made the right decision and attended the county council on this occasion. So that is my understanding, and we can't have a full house every day, I guess. Oh, the meeting was recorded. Yes, it's on YouTube, so everybody can catch up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillor Heinrich.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is a question for councillor Adams, and on the same vein as some of the previous ones. Has there been any indication from Anglian Water that the Gimmingham CSO will be modernised and upgraded, not only to deal with existing pollution issues, but also to ensure it can adequately cope with the planned growth of North Walsham? 1,800 odd houses produce an awful lot of extra effluent. Thank you.
Yes, Tim.
Thank you, Paul. We haven't been satisfied with the answer given yet. So you may recall that at a previous meeting, maybe in the last one, we shared with you that we'd met with both the Environment Agency and Anglian Water together. We've subsequently met with County Highways as well, not that this is thought to be an issue concerning highways drainage, but as I said, we wanted to rule those things out. In terms of the Gimmingham CSO, they have suggested it does need modernisation and upgrade to prevent this happening again, but they were able to give no commitments as to when that would be. My fear is for North Norfolk that we are left at the bottom of the pile in terms of the prioritisation, and that can't be the case. We're a coastal area, we've got real issue occurring here, and it must be sorted out as soon as possible. Upgrading all of these facilities, of course, is going to take a long time, but it's much needed investment to cope with the increases in housing growth. So I can see there's an indication over there, but if I can just finish and say that we will be meeting with Anglian Water as a corporate body, as a council, early on in the new council to discuss the issues, including the Gimmingham combined sewage overflow. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Withington.
Thank you. This is for Councillor Nigel Lloyd, please. Does the portfolio holder share my concern regarding the cavalier attitude of Anglian Water to the recent sewage leak on Munsley Beach, caused by failure of their inadequate and poorly maintained infrastructure? Would he further join me in condemning Tory government policy that continues to permit water companies to pollute our waterways?
I think you've answered that one, haven't you? Who's that to? To Nigel? Yeah, okay.
This is a good question. Anglian Waters and all the water companies have been privatised for over 30 years now. I think the privatisation occurred in 1989. Since then, bills have gone up about 40% in real terms. We were promised more investment. Has that occurred? I would say no. In fact, there was less invested in 2018 than there was in 1990. They have no competition. Anglian Water has no competition. It just reports to the regulator, who appear to be weak and spineless. Leakage rates now amount to the daily usage for about 20 million homes a day. Is the water leakage estimated from water companies' systems, and there are, as Tim, our leader, has said, that there are daily discharges into water courses around the country, into rivers and seas, and it's almost becoming routine now. Whenever you open up a newspaper, you see another example of something bad that's happened, and So yes, I do share those concerns, and I'm encouraged that our chief executive has written to Anglian Water's chief executive, Mr. Peter Simpson, asking a range of different questions. It's not only about sewage, but we have potential for water shortages in this county as well, and those may well affect some of our biggest employers. And you know, I think in the last 30 years, there's only been a small handful of reservoirs been built, and yet the demand during that period is just astronomical. So, yeah, I don't know whether the portfolio holder for Munsley would like to come in here with your forbearance, Madam Chair, but I think I've answered that question.
Yes, I'll allow councillor Fredericks to answer it if you wish to.
Oh, I wish to.
Go on then. In you go.
It's concerning the fateful weekend of Mothering Sunday. It was a Saturday evening when I received an urgent call regarding some houses in Holt that were under sewage because of Anglian Water's burst pipe and failure to attend. It was Sunday morning when I also got a phone call from our leader saying, have you heard what's going on at Munsley? And I said, no. So I dashed down to Munsley where the lifeboat was, and we had a massive sewage leak there. Anglian Water had turned up at 9 o'clock that morning. They didn't have a torch, didn't even have a bucket mop. They were woefully underprepared for what they came to see. By the time the second crew got there, it was catastrophic, if you like. It's a new word. It kind of fits. The Environment Agency took 6 hours of persuading to come to Munsley to help contain the spillage. This is not acceptable. So I've called a meeting on the April the 3rd with Anglian Water and the Environment Agency and our incredible officers that were there at the scene to understand what exactly is going on here. This is too much of, it's too much of this type. I can't even say the word that I want to, but it's too much for us to endure this kind of malpractice in our district. We have lost our blue flag and I want it back, and I want them to do something about it, and by Jove, they're going to.
Thank you. Councillor Rest.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question is to Councillor Wendy Frederick.
Sorry, Councillor Wendy Fredericks. My apologies. Page 68 on the printed paper. First section at the top, there is a paragraph which says, due to the funding received from the Department for Works and Pensions being exhausted, it has been agreed that the authority will top up the DHP fund by a further 30,000. Can I ask, please, when and how this was agreed?
Thank you, Councillor Rest. Yeah, it's a real shame that we've had to reach that limit of our discretionary housing payment, and due to a lot of the arrears, as you can see, rent arrears, ongoing rent shortfalls, because there hasn't been an uplift in local housing allowance since 2016, I believe. So we're seeing a lot of people in poverty. A lot of people are homeless because of this situation. Landlords are now facing a huge increase in interest rates, so they're choosing to sell instead. So we are incredibly worried about that. So the money actually comes from a pot that we had earlier with the Household Support Fund and other bits of funding that we haven't used. So we're just making the use of other grants that we have available and that we've underspent on to bolster the grant for the discretionary housing payment. So it's an already agreed amount of money that has been coming from grants. So we're just putting it together to make sure that we've got enough funds to help people when they're in crisis.
Thank you. Councillor Penfold.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and good evening. Question for Councillor Seward, please. And can I say it's very good to see you, Councillor Seward. Could you give us, please, an update on the financial position of the council? And I'm particularly thinking about the position moving forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question, and thank you for quite a question. I think moving forward, there's probably two things I would like to say. First of all is the overall economic climate in which this council has to operate. It is extremely difficult to prejudge what is exactly going to happen. I hope we don't have to go through another year like we had last year, where what actually happened, nobody could have actually predicted. But it is an uncertain territory, and I noticed the other day that the inflation rate has gone up again, and all the experts and forecasters were talking about a gradual decline. I do take the view that inflation, as we go through the year, will come down. And I very much hope it does, because particularly for this council, like many others, we cannot sustain a capital programme with the kind of rising construction and building costs that we saw in 2022. The second challenge we have is that local central government support to local councils continues to remain uncertain. When I had the opportunity in February 2019 to present the first budget as the finance portfolio holder, I talked about the uncertainty of the fair funding review and business rates. That uncertainty still exists. I do have some understanding why the government's not been in a position to change it, but as long as that uncertainty exists, it does make future financial forecasting and knowing what finances you've got quite difficult. So that challenge also remains. We also, of course, have forecast financial deficits moving forward, but that is no different to what I inherited when I became financial portfolio holder in December 2018. In the year 1920, there was a deficit of over 1.5 million forecast, and in the year after that, a deficit of over 2 million. That's probably slightly higher than what's being forecast at the moment. If you actually look at what happened, we successfully produced balanced budgets. We didn't actually cut services. And in one of those years, we didn't even raise council tax. So these things can be achieved if you go about it in an informed and objective way. And what the Section 151 officer has said to me is that we need to start early this year in terms of looking at the future pressures on the council's finances. And I would include the capital programme in that. She is absolutely right, and I've supported her. And I am pleased to say that we now have the resources in place so that that work can be done early rather than later. So I thank you for your question and hope that that provides the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Vincent Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is a question for Councillor Gay. On page 75 of our agenda, we see yet more money being sneaked into the Shelley and Cromer access, where it's reported that NNDC and everyone active are sharing the cost of 2 new pool covers, the contracts, 2 swimming pools. Well, actually, it's the hard-pressed council taxpayers across the district who are actually, and most of whom don't probably use the reef, who are actually paying for this. My question is quite simply, in both monetary amounts and percentage amounts, what is the district council paying for as its share of these 2 new pool covers, please?
Thank you, Councillor Fitzpatrick. I don't have the figure in front of me, but the purpose behind the pool covers is actually to save money on the energy bills for both for both premises. So you're quite right in clarifying that obviously the payment for this comes from the people of North Norfolk, but the purpose of it is to save money for the people of North Norfolk by spending less on energy bills. And if you would like, I will make sure that you have the financial figure, because it's in my notes, it's just not in front of me. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, if I may.
Just a minute, please.
Sorry.
Vincent, we've got other people who wish to speak, so.
Sorry,
Can have some.
wanted
Oh,
to say I
you're gonna
accept
start
a written answer.
Yes, do you want to say something?
Yeah, if I could have supplementary. Yeah, I accept a written answer. Thank you very much, Councillor Gay. But it's a supplementary. I'm actually puzzled why the District Council is sharing its costs, because Everyone Active have entered into a contract to operate this facility on our behalf, and it was a commercial decision that they've taken. And I understand that energy costs are a significant part of operating a swimming pool. However, that's the financial risk they took when they signed a contract with us. So I'm actually puzzled, and I'd actually appreciate an explanation of why we seem to be bailing out Everyone Active in their commercial ventures, because if energy costs have declined dramatically, we wouldn't be getting anything back from them. So why should we be paying extra? I'd be really interested to understand why Everyone Active aren't running that commercial risk. Thank you.
Well, I think you will understand that throughout the nation, there are leisure contracts which are coming to their ends. There are facilities which are actually being closed. And obviously, no one will want that to happen here. So you probably know, because I've reported in the past, that this council meets with Everyone Active on a regular basis to discuss the future and discuss what's happening. And in fact, I've been asked questions on other evenings in this chamber about the unfolding situation with energy. So it's just part of a continually ongoing dialogue to make sure that our leisure centres stay open, stay operative, and spend as little money as possible on these particular types of bills, because that's the best way that we can secure leisure centres and especially swimming pools for our residents.
Councillor Mancini Royal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is to Councillor Lloyd. As we can see in the minutes on page 28 of the paper we have agreed this evening, Councillor Lloyd didn't actually answer my question regarding this council achieving carbon neutral by 2030. Also, I was not allowed my supplementary as the portfolio holder has not given me a written reply. I will repeat the question if you need it. After all, I asked this in a budget setting meeting, as I could see no funding set aside or strategy for decarbonisation. Thank you.
On the contrary, money has been in the last few years allocated in the budget. It may not be itemised as a climate change activity, but there's been a wide range of activities ongoing. My answer to you last time was that we couldn't, in the net zero action plan, cost the whole thing up front because we had no idea what inflation might do, and history has turned out to say that that is the right decision to make. The NZAP now is in need of review after the first 2 years that it's been in operation. The council has actually done well on its carbon footprint. It's managed to reduce it by over 50%. And that's pretty much by just taking the low-hanging fruit. There was all sorts of things like, you know, things that wouldn't be itemised as a climate change initiative in the budget, but changing over to a new fleet of vehicles, for example, for our waste collection services saved a significant amount of carbon because they are much more efficient. It goes on right away across the board. You know, you mentioned virtue signalling last time, and if virtue signalling means reducing our climate footprint, I'm going to continue to virtual signalling. So, because that's what I should be doing. I make no apology for not costing the plan all the way through to 2030. I think that would be ridiculous to do that at this stage. But actually, Councillor Mancini-Boyle, many of the initiatives that are implemented will save this council money going into the future. Things like LEDs save about 10% of our electricity bill for this building, and that's locked in, you know, for the future. Things like putting the solar over the reef project, that goes down as sort of an asset management budget item, and that's probably why you missed it. But that's £500,000 will save this money, this council money, going right the way through. In fact, it's been calculated out as a minimum over the solar lifetime of about £2.5 million of savings to this council, which in turn will help to keep the facility open. So I struggle to, I'd like to say and there was no written answer recorded request to me. I thought I answered the question last time, but I don't know what else to say, really.
So, Gerard, if you want to talk with Councillor Lloyd afterwards, then please do. But I think
That'd be great. Can I just quickly come back very, very
well,
quickly?
we've only got 4 minutes left. And I've got
Okay.
two more people coming
I
through.
suppose my point is a lot of the stuff that you're now doing is stuff that frankly I mentioned 2 or 3 years ago, and it's just a shame it takes so long, and you haven't actually really gone far enough, in my opinion. You're still not using HVO fuel, not picking up textiles, you know.
No.
Thank you.
Can I just say, Madam Chair, that textiles are collected widely across this district. You've only got to go, you haven't got to go far to find one. HVO fuels, we have a tank installed exactly for that purpose. Our concern at the moment is about the supply of that material, about its cost. We are ready to change over, but we're also worried about the source of the plants that are used to produce the diesel. If we're knocking down forests in Indonesia to plant palm oil to make HVO fuel, that is not a sustainable way forward.
Thank you.
And so there's more research to be done on that at this council.
Thank you. Councillor Birch, now we are going to go slightly over, so Speedy Gonzalez, please, Don.
Okay, so question for Councillor Kershaw. Could you give us an update, please, on the improvements to North Walsham Marketplace?
Thank you, Councillor Birch. I actually visited the marketplace on Sunday and was happy to see that all the planters are now in position and have been planted, and the street furniture is finished. All the roadways are opened and marked, and we held the first farmers market actually in the marketplace since the refurbishment work. And there was an opera singer there, and it was very nice to see members of the public sitting on the wonky benches, drinking coffee and enjoying the atmosphere. So this week I've been down again because the road is now open, and there has been some traffic trying to get through. Enforcement has started, but I have to say, talking to members of the public there today, it's been very well received, and it looks wonderful. So that's where we are. And just to say that we were scheduled to finish at the end of March, so we've coming a week before, and looking at the weather, I'd just like to thank Tarmac for managed to get this laid in time, and it just looked wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Housden, this is our final question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, only a very quick one. Councillor Fredericks, on page 73, there's nothing in the forthcoming activities and developments. I would have thought with quite a lot that's going on, there ought to be something in there.
Yeah, sure. I can give you a rundown. Obviously, there's an election coming up and everything. Let me just have a look at my diary.
I didn't think that's got anything to do with housing, has it? Housing benefits?
No, it's not. But we've got a meeting. We've just been talking to Hopkins Homes on a development. I've got the meeting
Actually,
on
a
April. the
written reply
Oh,
would be
okay,
fine.
that's fine
Thank
then,
you.
no problem. Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem.
I now declare the portfolio reports finished. Yes, now we have a little hand up here from councillor Gay. Councillor,
Thank you. I wanted to add something to my report, if I may, Madam Chairman.
very quickly, please. Councillor.
Yes, what I would like to add is that on March the 8th, as you can see from my report, was the Integrated Care Partnership meeting at County Hall. At that meeting, Dr. Louise Smith, the Director for Public Health, presented her annual report. It has a section devoted to North Norfolk. It is an excellent report, and I'm going to ask that it's sent to everybody. And if you can possibly spare time, please look at the North Norfolk section. It is very illuminating. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, councillor Gay, for that. And I'm sure we will look at it. Anything that mentions North Norfolk, which is in a positive view, I recommend. Now go to agenda item 10. Recommendations from the Cabinet meeting on the 6th of March. Tim, you're taking this one?
Yes, just to say that it's an accurate description of the recommendation from the Cabinet meeting. So I have nothing more to say. Thank you.
Now we have an agenda item 9, the budget monitoring 222-223 period 10. Resolved to, this is from Cabinet, recommend to full council that any outturn deficit is funded by using the general fund reserve. And it says the Overview and Scrutiny Committee supported the recommendation at its meeting on the 15th of March. Can I have a proposal for this, please? Councillor Adams, seconder. Councillor Brown, can we have all those in favour? Hands show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Now, recommendations from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Not wishing to be to repeat unnecessarily, you've already considered the one recommendation in the vote that you've just taken. So it was the recommendation of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to agree that.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Recommendations from the Constitution Working Party. Councillor Varley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Not so much as a recommendation, but more of a quick update from myself and the Constitution Working Party. We met last week and we had a full comprehensive report and discussion on the initial stages undertaken in the reviewing of our Constitution. I would just like to give my thanks yet again to Ed Hammond and his team at the Centre of Governance and Scrutiny for their efficient work in this fundamental process of ensuring this council continues to have a robust governance structure and an easy, navigable, fit-for-purpose document that is the Constitution. Mr. Hammond and his team began this process in late December and have rigorously analysed the council structure and the manner in which it conducts its business. Interviews and surveys have been a part of this process, and I just want to thank those officers and members who have engaged in those aspects. An initial findings document was drafted from this process with a very clear outline of what was working well and what solutions could be put in place to ensure greater strength in the overall governance framework. Our working party discussed this document fully, and these thoughts around officer and member overreach and overall culture at the council will be taken on board. Amendments to that document will be undertaken to reflect our discussion. The actual redrafting work to the Constitution will then be able to take place, and Mr. Hammond is confident that these works will be complete and full council can review the finalised document in May or June under the new administration. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, councillor Varley. We go now to agenda item 13, the Debate Not Hate campaign. This is being introduced by Officer Denny.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the report is self-explanatory, but just with the local elections coming up in May, we just wanted to hopefully commit as a council members and officers to ensuring that anyone feels safe to stand as a candidate, and that we indicate that we won't tolerate harassment and abuse. You can see there are several recommendations, and that as officers as well, we will work to monitor the situation, record any incidents that you face, and also address them and provide support. I think it's also important to say that hopefully we'll also set an example to parish councillors, because we're working hard to encourage them to sign up to the civility pledge, which is their equivalent. And finally, as I've sort of said, you know, to encourage any prospective candidates that it is something that we do take very seriously and that we won't tolerate as a council. So it's just to ask all members, along with officers, to support the campaign. Thank you.
Does anybody wish to on this one? Councillor Gay and then Councillor Varley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've been a councillor for a long time, and it seems to me that the toxicity has increased in the nation, and as well as more locally. So I just wanted to say we have a system of government that is focused on freedom of speech and rule of the law, and they're necessary, but they're not sufficient. What's required for our system of government to flourish is for ordinary citizens, people like us, to be willing to stand for election and to be willing to take part in local government as well as national government. And about 10 years ago, I made a calculation. I don't know whether it still stands today, but it required roughly 2 in 100 of us to do these jobs. So what I'd like to say is that real debate involves doing your work, working up your argument, not making ad hominem comments. That's extremely important. And I'd just like to say this is very important to all of us, I think. And I would like to thank Emma Denny, because she has always worked to assure civil atmosphere within our district. And I'm grateful to her for this, and I support it wholeheartedly. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Varley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to Officer Denny for bringing this forward. I think this is such an important concept and ensures a fundamental step in changing the nature of how we conduct politics. Many councils are signing up to this notion, and I hope we will do tonight also. As Councillor Gay has already stated, within our democratic system, we expect ordinary citizens to step up and get involved and champion our communities, both at Westminster and of course locally. Now, I have spoken with committed individuals who would be fantastic parish and district councillors, but they are afraid to get involved due to the backlash and fear the personal attacks. Now, this is not an uncommon thing. I'm sure some of you would have had those conversations and can relate. Communities and our democracy is therefore robbed of good community champions due to this factor. However, Madam Chairman, I am quite encouraged by this motion tonight. I think this discussion is positive, and it allows for us to commit to being better, ensuring we encourage good political debate and not personal attacks. I want us to pledge to this concept. So when we vote, I would like us to pledge to this, and I therefore ask for a recorded vote. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Varley. That has been noted. We will be recording the vote. Councillor Cushing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just going to respond on behalf of the opposition to say we fully obviously endorse these recommendations. I think this is an excellent initiative from local government authority. Those of us like me who've been involved in politics a long time, and I go back a long way, almost to school and university days, being involved on and off in Conservative politics. And I recall that I was chairman of my university Conservative Association in the latter days of Margaret Thatcher's premiership. And believe you me, Councillor Gay, there's quite a lot of toxicity around then. So, but certainly I take your point that certainly I think in recent years it seems to be increasing. And I'm sure all of us, regardless of party, who go out on the doorstep regularly or post anything online will be on the receiving end of some very unpleasant comments at times. And it's not necessary, as Councillor Vardy says, it can put people off actually coming into this, politics at whatever level. And I think all of us who've been involved in this realise how rewarding it can be. And I think we should not lose sight of the fact that those who are good and wish as well far outnumber the poisonous few who don't. So certainly on behalf of my group, happy to endorse this and hope we have a unanimous majority for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cushing. Councillor Tom Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I think there's really nothing in this that sorry, that's yeah.
I forgot to warn you about mobile phones.
It's all right. Well, at least it wasn't mine.
It wasn't yours, Tom.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think sometimes we're spoiled in places like Norfolk, North Norfolk, because we engage in robust debate, and sometimes people think it's hostile and unfriendly, but yet I've seen debates in some of the council chambers in London, where the police actually remove people physically when they don't go in the past. I sat in the LGA executive for 2-3 years and was in a number of the committees, and speaking to some of the councillors, we come here and if someone disagrees with you and shouts rubbish, we think it's terribly rude and quite hostile. But some people there are actually in fear. They think twice about walking on their own into council chambers, and it's not robust debate, it's hostile debate. So I think anything we can do to show that actually it's possible to disagree and disagree robustly, but actually walk out the door and talk to one another on a friendly basis, because the politics goes away when we walk out. We can we can disagree, but we don't need to hate each other. And I think councils like this show a good example, and right across Norfolk and probably the east of England show a good example of how you can disagree and disagree in a robust way, but it's civilized and it's not hostile, and people feel at least they can come and make their points known. And this is just exactly the way to do it, to endorse this, and I'll be voting in favour.
Thank you. It reminds me of the courtroom scenario with barristers and solicitors really having a go at each other and then walking out and say, I'll see you in the pub in 5 minutes. So that is roughly the view. Councillor Vincent Fitzpatrick and then Councillor Clive Stockton. Sorry, Clive.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I fully support this motion, but I think it's actually sad that a motion like this needs to come in front of us, because I think it is reflecting wider society, which we are part of, and there is a huge amount of intolerance in the wider society, and I think that is really sad position that we're all coming to. We should be able to have contrary opinions, exchange our viewpoints, but not and knock the hell out of each other. If I'm allowed to use that phrase, so it's important that we continue to state our views, have our views challenged and challenge other people's, but do it thinking, I want that person to treat me the way I'd like to be treated by them, i.e. with respect and respecting your views, even though you might think their views are wrong and they're contrary to yours, you still treat everybody with respect. So fully support this motion, and it's just sad that these motions are needed. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I fully agree with you, Vincent, there. Clive, over to you. Is it working?
That's it. I agree with Councillor Vincent Fitzpatrick. It is unfortunately society-wide, people are no longer able to sit down and discuss any issue without becoming emotive, personal, very often nasty. I say that as somebody who, amongst other things, has run a pub for 30 years. We need not only to accept these recommendations ourselves, but as councillors, we have a duty, I think, to set an example to other people and use every opportunity to say to people, whoa, you know, let's do this in a civilized fashion. And we need to influence people in terms of the way they relate to each other. Sadly, nowadays, partly because of technology, partly because of other forms of isolation, people don't relate to each other in the way that by and large they used to. And we need to change that and get people to be able to treat other human beings, as Vincent says, as they would like to be treated themselves. So not only do I accept the recommendations and agree with them, but I think we have a duty.
Thank you. I must just say that I often find that people who send anonymous emails, etc., are the cowards of this life, the ones who can't actually face you with it and have a reasonable conversation with you. Vitriolic remarks are unpleasant. They're not the way in which we would wish to bring up our children or to deal with our neighbours. So I absolutely fully support this recommendation, and you will find the reasons. The Debate Not Hate campaign aims to raise public awareness of the role of councillors in local communities, encourage healthy debate and improve the response to and support those in public life facing abuse and intimidation. Can I have a proposer to accept this recommendation? Councillor Shires and seconder Councillor Bathwaite. Could we please have the vote called out now, Cara?
Thank you. For, against or abstain, Councillor Adams. Councillor Birch.
For.
Councillor Blathwaite.
For.
Councillor Brown. For. Councillor P. Butikofer.
For.
Councillor S. Butikofer.
For.
Councillor Cushing.
For.
Councillor Dixon.
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett. For. Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor T. Fitzpatrick. For. Councillor V. Fitzpatrick. For. Councillor Fredericks. Councillor Gay. Councillor Grove Jones.
For.
Councillor Hayman. For. Councillor Heinink.
For.
Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Holiday. Councillor Housden.
For.
Councillor Kershaw.
For.
Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Mancini Boyle. Councillor Pearce. Councillor Penfold.
For.
Councillor Perry Warnes. Councillor Rest. Councillor Seward. Councillor Shires. Councillor Stenton. Councillor Stockton. Councillor Vardy. Councillor Varley. Councillor Withington. For. It's unanimous.
Thank you. That's unanimous. We now go on to item 14, questions received from members, Emma.
None received.
None. I beg your pardon. Now we go to number 15, the opposition business, which has been proposed by Councillor Cushing and seconded by Councillor Dixon. If you'd like to introduce this, Chris, you're going to.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Hopefully this will be a relatively short debate. So what we're debating here is the request that we instruct the Director of Communities to initiate work on developing a bid for a 3G pitch that can be submitted to the Football Foundation. Now, clearly that may come with costs down the road, and I've put down here 700,000, but obviously that's cost that would be obviously incurred at some considerable later date if the bid is deemed worthy by the Football Foundation. Now, the reason I've actually submitted a motion on this is that I did actually ask the leader of the council at the last meeting whether he would support a bid, and I really didn't get a definitive answer. So the whole purpose of this motion is to get a definitive answer. The case for developing a bid for a full-size 3G pitch for Fakenham is compelling indeed, as indeed the administration acknowledged when it actually included this as part of the levelling up bid last year for a new swimming pool in Fakenham. As a consequence of that, there has been quite a lot of initial analysis work done, which is the starting point for any drafting any new bid. I'll explain to the members the essence of this. The proposal is to build a pitch at a place called Trap Lane, which is owned by the Thames Council and adjacent to the Sports and Fitness Centre. The Fakenham Town Council enthusiastically support the bid. They held their monthly meeting last week where I mentioned I was going to submit this motion, and I got strong support from them then. As part of the deal last year, they said that they would let the land at a peppercorn rent. So I don't put words into their mouths, but I'm assuming they would do the same going forward. Trap Lane is also extremely close to the Fakenham Academy, so a pitch there would be superbly located for use by their students who already actually make extensive use of the sports centre. Also, it will actually be close to the area of the Fakenham Urgent extension, so when that gets built out, it'll be close for use for people being based there. The funding request will be made to the Football Foundation, and it's a bid that is strongly supported by the Fakenham Football Club. I discussed this with Douglas Coleman, who is the chairman of the club, and he said they have a vibrant club with members not from just Fakenham, but the whole locality. Believe it or not, they have 25 youth teams alone, ranging from ages of under 7 to teenagers. They do have a problem, though, that they don't have enough pitches, and indeed have to book pitches outside Fakenham to play many of their home games. This loses them a considerable amount of money, which could otherwise they could plough back into the club. Douglas says that the football club would certainly use the pitch, and he believes there'd be strong demand from other sports clubs across Fakenham. Must remember that a 3G pitch like this could be used for a number of sports, one of which actually would be tennis, of which there is extremely poor provision in terms of courts within the town. Football Foundation supports developing 3G pitches in Cromer, North Walsham, as well as Fakenham. And I must put this in context. This is not an either or as far as I'm concerned. I understand that there is work in hand to proceed with an upgrade of the current pitch in Cromer. And so as it's an upgrade, not a new pitch, it may cost less money, but certainly as far as I'm concerned, that's good news. I have no issue with that. Regard to North Walsham, I understand from the Director of Communities that no pitch, site for a pitch has been confirmed, and there's not likely to be one coming forth in the foreseeable future. That's one advantage that Fakenham has at the moment. Now, I understand that the Director of Communities tells me that he thinks the Football Foundation has allocated its funding for new full-size 3G pitches, which will cover not only this year, but probably 2024 as well. So the 2025 is probably the earliest funding round that we could likely to be having success in getting our bid through. Having said that, it is possible that some 2024 allocations could fall by the wayside, so the sooner we prepare a bid, the better. We have the funding sitting in the capital reserves doing nothing. I remember last time I'm told that in times gone past, Councillor Seawood has actually said it's pointless having money sitting in capital reserves doing nothing. So I'm hoping that he will support this. So on this basis, I would urge, Madam Chairman, that the Council support the proposal, which will greatly benefit Fakenham and also the surrounding areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cushing. Councillor Dixon, do you wish to speak now or reserve the right?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll reserve the right to speak until after the debate.
Okay, thank you. Now I open this to the Leader of the Council. Sorry?
Thank you. I'll be supporting the motion, and I expect others will want to. Obviously, we have some money for sports provision generally. As Christopher's outlined, the Football Foundation highlights 3 areas in the district where these improvements in provisions are absolutely necessary and needed. They are Fakenham, Cromer and North Walsham. And Christopher's outlined that there's the pitch at Cromer that exists, but obviously is badly in need of refurbishment. And the provisions in Fakenham, we have to recognise that there's a challenge ahead. We need to provide more sports and leisure facilities in Fakenham. It's a growing town, and the sports clubs there need better facilities. They need better leisure facilities. So it's certainly the case that I'll be supporting this motion. As has been highlighted, the timescales for a delivery, they won't be immediate. It's the case, of course, that our relevant officer has been speaking to the Football Foundation about this already, to try and see if there is any room, but don't rule out, of course, there might be other grant funding that we can tap into. So it's important we do start to scope this out, and that's already work that we've agreed elsewhere. So certainly wish to support this and see it come to fruition in the future. And I believe that's all I have to say.
Yes,
Thank you.
Chair. Councillor Seawood.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Councillor Cushing, for bringing this motion to our attention. What you said in relation to the Fakenham proposal and the wider context, I fully concur with. The financial position is that within the capital programme, the Section 151 officer has confirmed to me this weekend that the existing provision of just over £800,000, it now reads Fakenham / North Walsham artificial pitch, so it's actually in the capital programme. So that is further authority that now exists for the Fakenham proposal. What now needs to be done, as the leader of the council has indicated, is for a scheme to be worked up and for that proposal to be brought before a future cabinet, and if necessary, given the sums of money involved, a future meeting of the full council. So that's the process. Christopher Cushing is absolutely right. The authority indicated its support for this in the levelling up bid. And this is a reflection, the fact that it's in the capital programme, of our continuing commitment. And indeed, the playing field strategy that the council did way back in 2017-18 talked about having all-weather football-sized pitches in Fakenham, Cromer and North Walsham. Now, just in relation to North Walsham, the current allocation in the capital programme is not actually for the football club site. It originates back to a decision by the Cabinet in December 2018 for an artificial pitch at North Walsham High School. And of that sum of over £800,000, about 60% of it was actually Football Association or Football Foundation money. So the contribution that's actually in there directly from the council is less than £400,000. The reason that didn't actually go ahead, and this is just a slight lesson for us, is that having got all the way through to the Cabinet and having approval, it was then found that that particular scheme did not comply with noise regulations. So I hope that in any scheme that comes forward from Fakenham, we will deal with that one early rather than later. The second thing in relation to a site in North Walsham. In principle, a site at the North Walsham Football Club remains. It's never gone away. What we haven't been able to do, and it's a shared disappointment both from the council and the football club, is to progress it to a stage where we can actually make progress and bring that about. So a site exists there. It's not the only site that's being discussed in North Walsham. And indeed, I was at a meeting some 18 months, 2 years ago, and the Football Association were committed to having a site at the North Walsham Football Club. I'll just say about the North Walsham Football Club, they have roughly the same number of teams, girls and boys, that Fakenham do, 24. Many of those children in particular come from deprived backgrounds. They can go all the way through to the senior team, and it is a highly valued community facility in North Walsham that's actually all run by volunteers, and they do an amazing job. And of course, out of the junior ranks within that football team, the England's women team that won the European Football Championships last year, one of those members of that team came through the junior ranks in North Walsham, and I note today is still playing for England in the next round of matches. So it is a club that is very valued in North Walsham, but at the moment, as things stand, the Fakenham project is ahead of the one in North Walsham, and it is important that we improve our sports facilities, and either through the Football Foundation or through other means, we can find a way of getting that project off the ground in Fakenham. We must do so. But I'm sure, no doubt, we will have to come back to North Walsham or to that part of the district, because that kind of sport facility is badly needed. So what I have to say is there is no red light, there's no amber light that's stopping the development of the project in Fakenham. In fact, there's very much a green light, as the leader of the council has indicated, and I hope moving forward that we will at some point see an artificial football pitch, not only for football, but hopefully for other sports in Fakenham. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now open to members, and Councillor Rest would like to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd obviously fully endorse my fellow councillor in Fakenham with exactly what he has said and what we need. And really, I would just say that as the leader has already stated that he is in total support of this, can I suggest that we get on with it, prepare it and have it ready for when we need it? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rest. Anybody else wish to speak on this? No, Chris, do you want to sum up them, please?
Yeah, because Councillor Dixon
Oh, I
got the chance to say it. So
I let you out, Nigel. I do apologise, my love.
That's all right, Madam Chair.
Would you like to?
Yes, thank you, I will. Well, I have to say, as we come to the close of this administration, it's really good to have a situation, having a debate where we seem to be on the same page, if not exactly on the same line. But much as Councillor Cushing has already said, I've heard from Councillor Seawood many times the merits of why it is that we should spend our earmarked reserves on those matters that have been allocated for that purpose. And this is certainly one that fits into that category. Councillor Cushing has already set out the numerous merits of this proposal, and I endorse and commend them to you as sound reasons to support this motion. And finally, this is a timely opportunity to address the imbalance of investment across the district. So it's an opportunity not to be missed. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Now, Councillor Cushing, would you like to?
I'd be very brief, Madam Chair. I'm pleased that we have cross-party support across the chamber for this. There's certainly the town council, the football club and others in Fakenham will be delighted to hear that when news reaches them. So thank you for that, and I'll finish there. Thank you.
Thank you. And we come to a vote now. We have the Councillor Cushing has proposed that this money of the earmarked reserves is allocated for an artificial grass pitch in Fakenham, because the North Walsham bid fell before it got to this point. So we now have a proposer, and the seconder is Nigel Dixon. And could we please have a show of hands in favour of this motion? That's unanimous. Well done, everybody. I think that's really good. Right, we now go to item 16. I've got so much paper here. Where are we? I think that's you, Greg, and Georgie.
Hello, thank you. Well, I'm hoping with this motion that the spirit of unanimity prevails across the council chamber. I'm not making any nods in any particular direction, but I certainly hope it shall. Basically, I think that we've got to a position where we have a voting system that was designed in the 19th century, and it really isn't where the choice then was a straightforward binary one. We're in the 21st century now, and we live in a much more varied environment in terms of political representation and the choices that are available to the public. But I think it also, by suggesting that we need a change in our voting system, I think we address some of the things that colleagues voted for in the earlier motion about debate, not hate. And it comes down to the fact that there is huge cynicism and disaffection among the public in what they vote for, and in the huge numbers who are not voting and not participating. And that's partly, I think, because our votes or people's votes often don't count because of the binary choice that we have. So we have examples where, for example, in rural areas, which is what we principally are, parties like the Labour Party and the Greens are not represented, and they're not represented at all, and yet they play huge parts often in their communities in different ways. But in terms of getting elected, their votes count for not a single councillor. And in inner city areas, and quite frequently, Conservative voters are equally disenfranchised, where Labour often racks up huge majorities, and that Conservative voting members of those communities do not have representation for their voice and their views politically on those authorities. So I think it cuts across the whole country in terms of providing a lack of worth in individual votes. And as I said, I think this voting system is now past its sell-by date. In fact, I'd go as far to say that that's actually a dead voting system. It's deceased and it's met its maker. And we really need to think of a better voting system, a proportional voting system where every vote counts and everyone feels they've got a proper opportunity to have their views reflected in the political outcomes. And I think if we were thinking about the businesses and how businesses run, we would never agree such a ridiculous sort of binary oppositional form of taking our public services and the democratic oversight of our public services forward. It wouldn't work for business, and therefore it shouldn't work for the public sector. We need a much more collegiate, cooperative way of working, where people actually across the divide have different views, etc., might sit around a board table, or they're the exec directors, and they will come to collective decisions about things. And that's how it should be in the public sector too. You get a better decision overall. You get all views and all talents included in the mix. And I think that's what's lacking from where we are. So I'd commend this resolution, which is only asking for a letter to be written to government, asking them for to consider a change in our voting system. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perry Warnes, Georgie, do you want to speak now, my love, or reserve the right? Right. Thank you. I now open to members. Does anybody to speak on this? Good heavens. Not a, oh, Andrew, a lone star.
Good evening, belatedly from myself. Back in 2020, in December, Parliament passed the Parliamentary Constituencies Act, which regulates and reviews constituencies and the process for determining them. And one member of government took to Twitter the day after, namely Chloe Smith, who is familiar to us, the very same person who's the MP for North Norwich, and was quoted as saying, "It will deliver to every voter confidence that their vote counts the same, no matter where it is cast." Well, that statement is probably at best, if I'm charitable, and I like to be charitable to causes like Chloe Smith, to be untrue, and at worst, it's frankly just misleading. So why do I say that? It's because all votes being the same is completely contradictory logic to the first past the post system, and really no amount of tinkering with the first past the post system will put that inherent defect right. And we've dealt with a number of statistics this evening from members asking questions, so statistic analysis seems to be popular this evening. So I'll give you some. On voting at the last general election, to elect a Green Member of Parliament, it took 866,000 votes. To elect a Liberal Democrat, it took 335,000 votes. To elect a Labour MP, it took 50,000 votes. And to elect a Conservative, 38,000 votes. So speaking for just one party, as you might imagine I will, to level the playing field, it takes 11.5% of votes to of electors to vote 1.7% of seats for my party. It's a ratio which is laughable. Smaller independent parties do not get representation at all, as we've heard Councillor Hayman mention.
Yeah.
So Chloe Smith's words seem to ring fairly hollow in view of those statistics. And no wonder only 6% in a recent poll of voters actually believe that their vote counted for something and represented them. 53% in that poll of electors thought that decisions made by our governments were more influenced by party donors, businesses, or lobby groups. Lobby groups, which I remember one former Prime Minister announcing when he took office that he would do his best to regulate much better in the future. And it has failed. So the deep flaw in our voting system, represented by the first past the post voting system, is warping our politics beyond all recognition, in my suggestion. And it's really no surprise that so many consider voting to be something of a waste of their time, and the legitimacy and motivations of elected politicians, such as the members in this meeting, are therefore continually called into question. I would have preferred this motion to have been brought after the 4th of May. But since it is on the agenda, I believe that it's supported by the Chief Legal Officer and Monitoring Officer. And I thank Councillor Hayman and Councillor Perry-Warnes for bringing this motion to the meeting tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Tom Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I do find myself in a bit of a cleft stick with this. It's only, I can't count, 12 years since we actually had a referendum on proportional representation in this country. And off the top of my head, it was 32.1% in favour and 67.9% against. Of those that voted, nearly 99.41% valid votes, and 19,279,022 people actually voted. So that's against. The thing is, you can skew things with proportional representation. And the famous case of that was when the Scottish Parliament set up. The proportional representation scheme was designed to ensure that no one party could dominate that assembly. I don't think that worked terribly well. it seems fair, but what we see throughout Europe is minority parties holding the balance of power. And one case in particular is what's going on in Israel at the moment, where it's a minority party hold. So it's not, so it can be, it's, on the face of it, it's fairer, but actually, depending whether it's a single transferable vote, a multi-transferable vote, top up, all the rest of it, it can actually, it's not necessarily fairer and it can be complicated. So emotionally, I think it's a really good idea, but I'm willing to be persuaded. But the one thing I feel is maybe not just before an election. I concur with what Councillor Brown said, but is it really something for this council? It's something that individuals should lobby their MPs on if they feel strongly about it, because it's a parliamentary matter. So that's my concern, and that's why I'm going to think very, very carefully about how I vote on this. But I do feel an eclectic. Thank you. Oh, and the one final thing is, it's only 12 years since there was a referendum on it. And I think I'm one of the many people that think when something's decided by referendum, it should be a generational thing. Not all of my compatriots think that, but you know, I think we can actually attack democracy when quite an overwhelming decision is made. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Cushing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Councillor Fitzpatrick's covered a number of the points I was going to make. I'd probably just add one or two to those. We did have the referendum, 42% vote of the population voted in that referendum. The other point I'd make is, well, 58% didn't vote either. So obviously they weren't overly worried about the issue. Like many of us in here, I obviously go around knocking on doorsteps, and I've done for last 2 or 3 years, and you ask people what they're concerned about, and I have to say I can't think of one person honestly in the last 2 or 3 years that's ever mentioned to me the voting methods we actually use within the country. I know there are arguments to be made in favour of it, and I certainly accept that, and Councillor Haymans articulated those well, and I can appreciate his point of view. But the Conservative Party has also been on the receiving end of the first past the post system, certainly during the Blair years, where effectively Conservative vote was very underrepresented in Parliament. But one thing I would say, if you look at this country since the Second World War, by and large, not always, but by and large, we've had strong and stable governments, whether they've been led from the left or whether they've been led from the right. On that basis, I'm afraid I can't actually support the motion as written this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Gay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just have to say that I did vote in 2011. I voted for proportional representation. There was also a local election at that time, so there was opportunity to hear people's views at that time. And frankly, I don't think there was a very full discussion in the nation, and I don't think there was very much information went out to people in 2011. But I'd just like to say there are no perfect systems of voting. You know, if you look all around the world, there are no perfect systems. But we have seen participation of voters dropping in this country, both locally and nationally. And maybe it's time to have a bit of reform and try something different. So I shall be voting for Councillor Hayman's motion. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. I think you're quite right, Councillor Gay. I mean, I have looked at the various systems that are in operation throughout the world, and it's mind-boggling. And I do think we do have to look at this again. I can understand all the reservations that have been made, but the times I hear people say to me, oh, I'm not going to bother to vote, it won't make any difference whichever way I do it. And I'm appalled. And I say, if you don't vote, you can get the people in who you really don't want. So, you know, we have a vote. Women fought very hard for the vote. I always say this, and I think it's a privilege. Look at all the countries where you cannot vote. It's a privilege to be able to express your personal view at the polling booth. Did I see councillor Penfold
You did.
waving an arm at me?
You did. Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Well, just a final, well, assume it might be a final point, but I'm just wondering what we expect will be a good turnout in our upcoming district council elections. 35%, maybe 40%. We'd probably think that was a good turnout, and that really says it all. That isn't a good turnout, and we should aim much higher than that. That's under our present system. It's not good enough.
Okay, Vincent, you wanted to say something?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I 100% agree with Virginia that there's no perfect voting system. However, whatever voting system we have needs to deliver functioning governments, and that's at a national level, local level, and look at Italy, for example. For years and years, the Italian government, I think the House of Parliament in Italy had revolving doors. The government's changed so much, but there is no perfect system, and I think Virginia's hits the nail on the head. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Housden. Nigel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One might take from your comments, you think voting should be compulsory.
Well, I think it is in some countries.
Well, it is in Australia. Yeah, definitely.
I just think that people have had to fight so hard.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't make it compulsory.
No.
But
My main point really was that the fact I think if you look at the picture globally, there's a great disenfranchisement of the population, and that's leading to a great distaste for politics in its wider sense, and particularly if we see, and I'm not just talking about politicians in this country, it is across Europe, it is across the globe. And I think I see the merits of proportional representation, but I find it a difficult issue personally. And I think it's a difficult issue because the top sector of politics needs looking at, and morality leads looking at amongst that top set of politicians globally. Until morality and scruples are dealt with, I think proportional representation is a very secondary subject.
thank you. Anybody else from the floor? Oh, goodness me. Yeah. Wendy and then Paul. Is that it now? Wendy and Paul. Right, Wendy.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. I really worry about the turnout of this election, and the voter ID card. This is just disenfranchising voters even more. I think our role to get out there and actually encourage people to the polling stations, because they're thinking, well, why should I? We're being told that we've got to jump through hoops to get to polling stations to vote. I think it's absolutely awful. And in Norfolk, we have a polling fraud, don't we? A record of voter fraud that is actually zero, and yet we're still being put through this this silly system. So, yeah, I'd encourage people to really think about this and get a postal vote if they don't want to engage in getting ID cards. So I'd really like to say to the people at home watching, please come out and vote, because it is your right. And if you can't vote, please get a postal vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Heinrich.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to respond to Councillor Fitzpatrick's point, he mentioned Italy. Can I remind you all that the most stable democracy in Europe in the last 70 years has been Germany, with a proportional system largely designed by British advisors. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. If we've finished with ordinary members, I now pass to Councillor Perry Warnes to sum up as seconder to this motion.
Am I meant to be summing up?
Well, sorry, not summing up. I beg your pardon, seconder. I'm getting me summers uppers and me seconders muddled up tonight.
This is my last full council, and it's been good to hear such an interesting and good-natured debate with good points made both for and against. It's been a debate without hate, in fact, which we all know is close to my heart. In fact, this is one of the main reasons that I support proportional representation, despite some of the issues identified. Proportional representation promotes collaboration, not polarization. PR rarely produces an absolute majority for one party, so politicians from different parties would need to reach a consensus together. This should stop the spiraling race to adopt the most extreme positions in order to appeal to core voters, as we have recently witnessed. I also strongly believe in democratic principles. Proportional representation would mean that there would no longer be any need for tactical voting, because every vote would matter in every seat, not just marginals. This in turn would lead to higher turnout and less voter apathy. We've had enough of the two-party government seesaw between Labour and the Conservative Party. The current first-past-the-post electoral system is unrepresentative. It is polarising. It doesn't reflect the broad spectrum of opinions that are held in the United Kingdom. Binary systems are for computers. We humans need nuance and variety to avoid becoming tribal mudslingers. This is my last fight for fairness. Please support this motion and show that you believe in collaboration, not polarisation, as the way forward for this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, excuse me, Georgie. Thank you. So now we go to a vote. Sorry, Greg. I think I'm getting tired. You know,
That's all right. Well, I just wanted to echo George's comments really, and to applaud everyone for the civilized way in which this discussion was conducted. I think it was really illuminating, and I think it was really helpful. And I think if the public are watching, they'll be really heartened by that. And I think it augurs well for the administration that will follow this one. I hope those lessons will be learned. And I, in the past, have probably been guilty of not being as collegiate or as consensual or as kind as perhaps I should have been and would want to be treated. So I offer that as an outgoing thought. But I commend this to you because I think it's an important thing. And I think it's rather worrying that we are in a club of two with perhaps not one of the nicest regimes in the wider Europe. And I think we should not be party of that particular club. Anyway, I commend this to you.
Thank you. And apologies for not bringing you in there, Greg. I'm so sorry. So now we have the proposer for the motion from Councillor Hayman, seconded by Councillor Perry-Warnes, to ask that the council therefore resolves to write to His Majesty's government calling for a change in our outdated electoral laws and to enable proportional representation to be used for UK general elections. I'm now going to ask you to vote. All those in favour of this proposition? (23) 23 in favour. All those against? Seven against. Abstentions, please. 3 abstentions. Does that add up? Is that right? Anyway, it's passed anyway. Yes, it's passed. Thank you. So it'll be interesting to see if the government actually writes back to us. Whoever knows. We now go to item 17, exclusion of the press and public, and 18, private business, nothing. Can I just say, I've sat through these traumatic 4 years, we all have. They've been really quite difficult with the pandemic, etc. But I have to say that I have been delighted mostly with the behaviour of all of you members. It's been delightful for me to sit here and see the way in which you discuss things and argue, and at some point obviously could quite easily throttle each other. But as we say, we all go out of here and we are polite and pleasant with each other outside the chamber. This is the only political forum that our council allows you to be political in. Everything else, it's apolitical, non-political. So good luck everybody who's standing again. Thank you so much to all of you who are no longer going to stand. I wish you a very pleasant and peaceful future, and see you all again soon, somewhere, sometime. Good night, everybody.